Radicals and rational exponents. This is really probably the only thing that you've never seen before. Other pieces of this topic you've seen before. And this is probably the most new thing that you're going to use. So first, before we even talk about what the rule is, let's make sure that we remember what a radical is. Well, remember that is that check marky shape with the line above it. That's a radical. And when I think about rational exponents, well, we know what an exponent is. That's when we have a base with a number, okay? But when I see this word rational, what that really means is that I'm going to have a fraction of some sort. So instead of having a power that's just x to the power 2, we're going to have something that looks like x to the power 1/2. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about radicals, and we're talking about powers with fractions as the exponents. So the rule that we're talking about is that to make a radical into an exponent, you make the index into the fractional exponent. And remember, the index, when I think about a radical, the index is the little number that is on top of the check marky part. So sometimes there's no number there, and again, when there's no number there, it means it's automatically a 2. Okay, but sometimes you'll see a radical with an index of 3, sometimes you'll see a radical with an index of 4, or even 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, but the index is this little number that is in front of your radical symbol. So let's actually put this skill to use. It's going to help us when we simplify to know how to make radicals into exponents, because we have all these wonderful rules about exponents, so it's going to be helpful for us to be able to use those rules. So when I look at question number 1, I have a radical. My radicand here is an x, and my index, well, there's nothing over here, so remember that means it is a 2. So if I want to change this to be an exponent instead of being a radical, all I need to do is keep the radicand is going to become my new base, and my index is going to become my fractional exponent. So I'm going to make it 1/2. My index was 2, so I'm putting that on the bottom of my fraction, and then I just keep the 1 on top. Now, if I look at question number 2, my radicand was p, so that becomes my new base, and my index becomes my fractional exponent, so this is going to be 1/3. Look at number 4. My radicand was m, that becomes my new base. My index was 4, so I make that into my fractional exponent. Now, number 4, here we go. This is where it gets kind of interesting and fun. When I look at this, my radicand is something that already has an exponent, but that's okay. I'm going to use that as my base, 3 to the power 5. But now I still have to use my index somehow. Again, there's no little index here, so that really means it's a 2. But we said that the index should always become the fraction. So all I'm going to do is take the 3 to the power 5, add a fraction bar, and put the 2. Sorry. Again, we are taking 3 to the power 5, and since my index was 2, I'm putting the 2 on the bottom of my fraction there. When I look at question number 5, my radicand down here was w. My index was 4, so that's going to be 1/4. But this was all inside parentheses, so I'm going to keep my parentheses and make it a 2. Well, look, I have power to a power going on here. And I know that my rule for that is to multiply these two exponents. So that would become w to the 2/4 power. Now let's look at number 6. Number 6 is asking us to go the other direction. I have a power, and I want to make a radical. Okay, so remember my base is going to become what's inside of my radical. And my fractional exponent is now my index. So I have the 4th root of c is what I would say for that. Number 7. Okay, when I look at this, I know my index here is going to be 2 because that's what's on the bottom of my fraction. So I can either put the 2 there, Or remember, I don't have to, because something without an index automatically means 2. Now what's left over here? I have an x and I have a power 9, so those both go inside my radical. Sorry, that should look like that. And then for number 8, again, my index, or the bottom of my fraction, is going to be what is on the outside of my radical. And the leftover information, I had 5 to the power 2, so that stays as my radicand. Again, switching back and forth is very helpful to us, because since we know all these rules about exponents, it's going to help us simplify problems if we can take these radicals and make them into exponents.